Hi guys. This video is to walk you guys through your second essay assignment. So in this unit, you guys read a number of texts from the modernist movement, which was centered around the same time as World War I and World War II. So you've really looked at different movements, different conflicts, and you've looked at things like the Harlem Renaissance as a movement. Um, there are a lot of different connections you can make between these different movements and authors. So for this one, it's actually another very simple prompt. You're going to choose two of the works that you read in this unit from two different authors, and you're going to compare and contrast them in terms of literary analysis. So as I said in the first essay, the most important thing is that you analyze these pieces of literature as pieces of literature. So you're going to choose works that either naturally fit together, or maybe you can choose two things that don't seem to naturally fit together, but you show your audience why they actually do, whether it's comparing or contrasting different literary elements within them. So within the analysis, you really need to show how they're similar and different in terms of literary elements or style. Um, so that could be, you could choose to do, say, a poem versus prose, and that would obviously be very significantly different. And you can show how different elements within each crisscross. Maybe they are somewhat similar in certain ways and somewhat different. That's the most important and primary thing. Secondarily, you can look at the historical or biographical context between them. So there's some interesting connections you can make between some of these authors, historically and biographically. But again, the most important thing is that you look at them as a piece of literature. So you're going to use the graphic organizer you created to help you kind of organize your thoughts and see where you can make these connections. You are required to use at least two credible sources to support your analysis. Now, these can be just from the internet. They don't have to be like scholarly articles or anything like that, but they do need to be credible. So I would suggest looking at things like .edu sites or pbs.com or biography.com. Things like GradeSaver and Help Me 123 Help Me are not the credible sources that you should be looking at. Your essay needs to be 2 to 3 pages in length and is due by Sunday, April 17th at 11:59 p.m. So, as always, everything's checked for plagiarism. Make sure you have MLA formatting and citations, so that's in-text citations, as well as a bibliography. When I say 2 pages, that means to the bottom of the second page at minimum. You can always write more. You just can't write less. Otherwise, if you write less, you will lose points. And again, this is purposely broad, so the choice is yours as far as how you want to connect two different authors and two different works read in this unit. So you could do, say, Frost and McKay. You could look at, his description, say, of life in the city versus his description of, say, life out in the country. You could connect, say, McKay and Langston Hughes, absolutely. You could talk about certain lived experiences between these authors. You could look at Hemingway and Fitzgerald, obviously both expats living in Paris in post World War I. So how did that shape their understanding of people and humanity and conflict? So there's a lot of ways you could really do this, and that's why I'm leaving it up to you. I want you to choose things that are of interest to you. I want you to choose authors and works that are of interest to you here, but also what you talk about within those connections, whether that's similarities or differences. That is broad, so you can choose the things that are of most interest to you. If you really enjoy, say, the function of dialogue, and you want to talk about how dialogue is used in Fitzgerald and another text, you can do that. If you want to talk about symbolism or illusions or setting or conflict, you can absolutely do that as well. So I do suggest you think about maybe 2 to 3 literary elements you might want to talk about. That could be, again, like I said, particular metaphors, conflict, foreshadowing. It could even be things like the structure of the text. So how does the poetic structure differ from the prose structure, and how does that create or differentiate certain meanings, or how does it actually create connections even though the structures are different? So you're going to have to analyze these works in depth, of course, using your knowledge of the historical era and the biographical information to help contextualize this further. So again, I'll say it again, the most important thing is to keep the focus on the text as a piece of literature. Don't let this become a biography. Don't let it become a history essay. It's a literary analysis essay, so you should be analyzing the literature most importantly. Secondarily, you can look at the historical and biographical context because, again, just like in your first essay, you really cannot divorce these authors from these texts. Their experiences help directly influence the messaging or the themes within each text as well. Use, again, solid concrete evidence from the text to show your audience what you're talking about. So this is quotes, direct quotes from the texts, and then expand on those in your own words with your analysis. Some things to think about. How do they connect or not connect in terms of theme or other major literary elements? How do the works, how are they similar or different? And how does that impact meaning in terms of structure? So again, how does a poem versus a prose, how does the first person versus the third person, how does that impact meaning? And then what historical biographical elements can be used to help contextualize those works? And then what's the differences or similarities between those authors as far as the historical situation? So how does that influence their understanding of the social, political, economic issues portrayed within these works? So you're going to be assessed on making sure you have a good, solid argument with a clear thesis claim and main ideas. Make sure that in your body paragraphs you have good, close analysis of the works and their major concepts, that you're incorporating solid evidence, and you're incorporating your source material. So the purpose of a source is to support your argument. So if you're going to tell me that the setting of Babylon Revisited is really important because it portrays the expat life, or the same thing with Hemingway, the conflicts of being an expat post World War I, and you maybe don't have a solid understanding of the American identity in that case. You want to explain to me how that's portrayed through the text specifically with these pieces of evidence. So your source material, like I said, should support your analysis. So you might find a source that talks about Hemingway's own experiences and how that influenced that messaging or that theme. Or you might find a source that talks about the work itself and pull some support from that source to support your argument. That, say, for example, the symbolism of the railroad is very, very important because it represents X, Y, and Z. And then make sure you have a good essay structure as always, a good intro with a thesis claim, clear main ideas with lots of good evidence and analysis around it, and a conclusion which restates your thesis claim and your main ideas in new words and wraps up your argument. And then a good organization across your thematic concepts. Now, this is really important. When you do a compare and contrast essay, what you don't want to do is have a separate paragraph for each author or work. So you don't want to have, say, one paragraph for Frost and then another paragraph for McKay, and then one for Frost and then one for McKay. What you want to do is connect them across ideas. So if I was going to do, say, Hemingway and Fitzgerald, and I was going to talk about, the setting is very important. The expat lifestyle is portrayed through the setting. The conflict between genders is portrayed through the setting, and the symbolism of the nomadic lifestyle is portrayed through this setting, through say symbolism of the railroads or whatever it is. Then I want to make sure that each of my main ideas includes some information about Fitzgerald's works and some information about Hemingway's works. So it should be a mixture of both text within each main body paragraph. Whether you're talking about the similarities or the differences, that's up to you. But what you don't want to do, and I'll say it again, you don't want to have one paragraph for one author, one paragraph for the next, one paragraph, one paragraph. You want to mix them across thematic concepts or ideas, your main ideas, and that's really a higher level of argumentation. So that's pretty much it. If you have questions, let me know. You're always welcome to reach out and email me with anything. But again, have fun with this, choose things that are of interest to you, and let me know if you have questions.